All right, so I've seen some complaints from people talking about how clearly Celestials are overpowered, etc., etc., etc. Well, you know what? We got some VODs here for you. As we're gonna up the sound just a little bit. There we go. This is Mixu Snoxtar. This is the grand finals of tank number 13. That's the Alpha Navigators Cup. Number 13 of Europe, Middle East, and Asia. EMEA, or Europe, Middle East, and Africa. There we go. EMEA is the regional. Mixu, of course, one of the best Vanguard players that exists in Stormgate. And actually, it was really funny. I was going, and when I was down in Dallas, Mixu was there. Or, excuse me, Atlanta, DreamHack Atlanta, back in the fall. And Mixu, every chance he could get, as he was playing in the open bracket, instead of playing the open, when he didn't have a game to play in the open bracket, he was grinding Stormgate. So that says everything you need to know. And Snoxtar recently actually just signed to Aftermath. A very, very good Infernal player. He's top 10 on ladder, I think. He's top 15, certainly, when the playtest ended. So very, very good Infernal player. Very, very good Vanguard player. And the story that we're going to be paying attention to as we take a look at what's going to happen in this, next 3 to 5 games, this is a best of 5, is, does Snoxtar have an answer to the mass promotion spam? Because that has been the problem over the course of a good majority, really, of how Vanguard players have been playing. They've been going, they go up to a very quick tier 2 command post, then they go and they spend 5 energy to put generally a hedgehog up to tier 3, and it just goes like that and goes like that. You build this large amount of very heavily upgraded units that just do a ton of damage. They don't die, and it can be very, very difficult to deal with. The question is whether Snoxtar has a good answer for this one. So for now, it's going to be a triple expand. This shouldn't be too surprising. While yes, it might look a little bit weird that Snoxtar's going to take his 3rd shrine before the natural of Mixu's even going to get started. Well, first of all, you can power build as Mixu, so you can send 4-ish bobs onto the natural, overcharge them on their way over, and they're going to go and very quickly they're going to build that natural. But in this case, that's not even what we're going to see. This is aggressive. This is aggression for Mixu. We saw him go over to the left side and take that Therium camp very early into this game. And what that means that realistically, with the Therium camp, with the Luminite camp, he doesn't have to spend as much into his economy because he has these camps on the map. So instead, he's going to take that little bit of extra economy and start to really try to steamroll this into an early game advantage. So we can see tier 2, right? All the scouts, I guess the Lancer's only level 2, not level 3, but everything is very highly promoted. And yeah, this meat farm is here, and it's going to try to do something, but it's going to go down very quickly. And in fact, I think Snoxtar is going to have to cancel the 3rd base. I don't hate it. Realistically, Mixu has gone aggressive. Has gone aggressive with this. He doesn't have his natural. We're going to keep an eye on, and actually there's a Gaunt there, or there's a Fiend there, so we're aware of what's happening. Snoxtar is very well aware of just how aggressive Mixu is being. So the 3rd base was canceled. Fine. But it's going to get started up again. And Mixu behind this, well, he's got Hedgehog spam on the way. So we got the scouts, that's map control, that's pressure. And behind this, well, they're Hedgehogs on the way. And I could have sworn the shrine was canceled. My bad. But the shrine's now there. So 3rd shrine is done. Imps are going to start to saturate the natural, I think. Not totally sure how good the economy is at the moment, but Snoxtar is starting to develop his economy a little bit more, but now it becomes again complicated because the meat farm went down. I don't think there are any Shroud Stones available outside of the 3rd base, and without something big and beefy and bulky to hide behind, this incoming Hedgehog spam. By the way, we talked about how it's really incumbent upon the Infernal player to go and get their bases up quickly because of how quickly Mixu can go and take that natural and power build it up. So it's good for him that he has the 3rd base up. But as we see this Hedgehog starts to come out, it does really feel like you need something to hide behind. A couple Shroud Stones with the Gaunts behind, because of course, well, I'm talking about Hedgehogs. There's just a tier 3 Vulcan getting ready here with the scouts behind, and it's going to be mass repair from these bobs as well. And I'm just looking at this, and I'm like, how in the world is Snoxtar supposed to defend against this? I mean, look at what this Vulcan is doing, or the damage it's taking, which is just nothing. Yes, we're going to see some of these brutes. They're going to get split away to maximize damage, but now you have very low HP fiends, and what are you going to do? So for now, we're going to see the imps. They get pulled away. A little bit of extra damage there from the scout, but I think this 3rd base is kind of dead now. We're of course seeing with the Hexen, constant infest, constant vision, some attempt to try to get that little bit of extra damage, but this third base is broken. And there's a second Vulcan running across the map. This feels very, yeah, I don't know how you're supposed to break this down. Upgrades are ready as well, so the Vulcans, they can dash forward, they can clear things. Actually, I don't know if it was worth it to go in and to knock the trees down. I think you would rather have that choke available, but I feel like you need Weavers. It's just the long and short of it. To make sure you can defend against this, you need Weavers to make sure you can abduct the Vulcans, you can separate them from your opponent's army. You can do that percentage HP damage, which as Vulcans are very, very tanky, is a big deal. Because even as Snoxtar is, maybe getting one of the Vulcans, and he gets one. I mean, behind this, there's a Hedgehog, and there's a second Vulcan that's at level 3. There's a bunch of scouts. There's nothing that Snoxtar has. He doesn't have the production for it yet. He got up to 3 bases as quickly as possible, but that just wasn't a thing. All right. So I was told, by the way, as we get into this series a little bit more, game 1 kind of ended with a bit more of a whimper than it was a bang. I've been told that at least one game in this series is an absolute banger. Maybe more, but at least one game is really good. Don't know that it's going to be this map, but this is a bigger map. And of course, the thing we have to point out as we get on in here into game number 2 is that the map we're playing on is a 4-player map. Players can spawn bottom left, I guess more like middle bottom left, but close enough. Middle upper right, bottom right, upper left. You have these 4 areas we can kind of see. I guess, you don't want to be technical. The corner bases are really more of a third. Sometimes we see Infernal players go to take it as the natural just because they really want the Therium there as quick as possible, as much as possible. But anyways, point being, if you want to be technical, I guess it's a little bit offset. But anyways, this map that we're on right now is weird. Because take a look at it. There's only 2 Therium patches available for each base. They're 4 Luminite. Because if you kind of see the base we're looking at right now, you go due north. So Snoxtar spawn. If you go due north, you'll see an extra base that doesn't really look like it's part of the setup. It's on the same plateau. So you do benefit from that one. But anyways, so it's a bit weird like that. 2 Therium, 4 Luminite. And the only other Luminite on the map, unless you kind of expand around, it can kind of be difficult to go take an alternate base spawn area. It's very far out of the way. The only other Therium on the map is in the middle. Is just these innumerable Therium spots. So it becomes very, very interesting to see just how players have to play this. We sometimes see very heavy tower pressure coming in from Infernal players. So they just put down a bunch of Shroud Stones in the middle of the map to try to hold the area. We'll see, if you're watching Celestials play, it's not uncommon to see them go and just float their arc ship into the center and say, this is fine. This is what we're going to do. And, good luck. So, Vanguard, I guess, tend to play it a little bit normal. But also the other benefit is there's this vision tower in the center of the map. So it's something that's pretty worth doing if you want to contest it. It's Therium, it's vision, it's map control, it's a lot of things. Again, we're going to see this setup where you go for the early scouts. You go for that one base, heavy promotion type of idea. And that it sweeps Infernal players for the map. You really don't have a lot of map control. And that actually is in really stark contrast to how it was played in the last playtest. So now we're looking at this and we say, okay, this is, we can see what's happening here. The scouts and eventually maybe Hedgehogs if you go for that one, or a Vulcan push or whatever it is something that, okay, clearly this army of Snoxtar is not going to be able to fight this super easily. You got a bunch of scouts. They do a bunch of damage to light units. They're heavily upgraded, so they do even more. And Gaunts don't really fight. Brutes don't do a lot of damage. Fiends get swallowed. So you're kind of forced to sit at home for a little bit. Luckily, Mixu or Snoxtar does have access to 3 bases pretty reasonably. But it's kind of this edge and this push me, pull you. Where for now, Mixu has the map. So we're going to see him go and, I mean, these Gaunts are going to try to show up on the other side, but the scouts are going to be more than enough to handle this for the most part. I mean, yes, Fiends are faster, but yeah, this is just scouting. This really shouldn't get a lot done. But anyway, so point being, as we talk about things, for now, Mixu has the map. He can start to go take all these creep camps and take the vision camp and get the speed camp and get most importantly, take the resource camp and start to speed run his economy. that much faster. And then, well, you take the map and you maybe take a third base. You don't take a fourth base super early, but you can get a Therium refinery on the Therium in the middle and start to establish your position. And meanwhile, Snoxtar has to play a little bit more defensively, sitting at home, building up a bit of a wall, maybe some shroud stones, maybe just a couple meat farms, but just enough stuff that hedgehogs and scouts can't dive on top and kill off a lot of stuff. Just totally annihilate Illuminite lines. So that's what he's going to be looking for. And for now, it seems like Mixu's found a bit of an angle through the middle of the map into where assumedly this third base is going to be, or assumedly this third base is. And we can see, there we go. Cooldown's available. Energy's available. That's a tier 3 hedgehog right there. And Snoxtar is not too happy about it. But he does have other things. Actually, getting a bit of a surround here. Unfortunately, that brute's going to be the one that gets surrounded. So a couple gods pop or a couple fiends pop out. I'll get this right one of these days. They don't die for the most part, but 150 Luminite for 2 fiends, which is effectively what this is because that brute didn't do anything, is pretty dang expensive. So again, not the end of the world, and I'm not just sitting here saying, wow, Vanguard imba, please nerf. That was my latter experience, but these players are far better than I am, so who am I to judge? Can't really complain about that one. But the question we ask is, again, this scout. It's funny, I talked about this in the 2v2 cast, but it's effectively dogs and cars. You used to have in like 2v2 in StarCraft, where you had hedgehog, we had Hellions and Zerglings, and now, well, you got scouts and you got hedgehogs. It's kind of the same thing. You got scouts to kill off all the gaunts and the fiends, and the hedgehogs kill everything else. And with their veterancy, they pack a hell of a wallop. They are very, very strong. Just about as strong as this heat of the tea, this tea that I'm drinking, that I would love to cool down so I could actually drink some. That would be very nice. But anyways, we're talking about this. The map control is apparently we're going to zoom in here quite a bit, but map control is really nice, of course, obviously, but you can also knock these trees down, as Mixu's showing us right now. So diving into the main base, first of all, it's a scout, shows that, okay, he knows exactly what the tech is. And yes, technically hedgehogs are an answer to the Spriggans, technically. But if they're in anti-air mode, they're not mobile and they can't shoot ground. And if they're in anti-ground mode, they can't shoot air. So it's a little bit awkward here. And in fact, we're just going to see things cutting away for the most part. More Spriggans are starting to pop out. But these hedgehogs they're in an okay position. They're not in the best position, but they're in an okay position. But this setup here with the scouts just kind of plugging the gap, the one hedgehog in anti-air mode, just knocking down as many Spriggans as possible. Eventually, the hedgehogs are going to have to run away because Spriggan Brute gone is, while Therium expensive, can be pretty strong in this situation. But even still. Oh, look at this. Mixu getting med techs very early on. So now we got we talk about this dichotomy, right, of where you go and the Vanguard has map control, or the Infernal has map control very early, and then the Vanguard develops a bunch of map control, and it looked like for a moment that Snoxtar might be able to really establish the map control with everything else. And bear in mind, if you get Spriggans out in enough numbers, well, Vulcans don't shoot up. It really is all on these hedgehogs to make sure that they have that air superiority, that they are able to go and shoot up and knock all the Spriggans down. Because the idea is, well, so Spriggans, they fire 3 shots at a time. They fire this volley. Every shot applies a debuff that decreases attack speed if they're units, or decreases production speed if there's something else. So theoretically, if this Vulcan unit that attacks very quickly, that is kind of designed around that, well, if you can go and put a bunch of Spriggans on top of it, you can really deny some mining in a rather nice way. So Mixu opened up one wall, and we're actually going to see him dive through that once again. But his opponents also opened up a wall in his own in Mixu's main. So I'm going to be curious to see how this works out. But for now, we're going to see, well, that's dead. All right, that the Shadow Spire is gone, which means you can't build any more Spriggans. And that does not feel particularly good. Meanwhile, ooh, Hedgehog's on the right side as well, so double prong attack coming from Mixu and Fiend's attack into the main base. Mixu's pull is very delayed on this one. No overcharge either. Really focusing on attacking the front side, knocking down the Shadow Clef before any upgrades are available. But Mixu's taking so much damage on the other side of the map. Now the Spriggans are gonna die. Yes, absolutely. And realistically, these Gaunts also, I don't know if they have the speed upgrade yet. But the Gaunts are not in high enough numbers to really make a difference. But the problem is, again, is that Snoxtar annihilated the economy of Mixu. Mixu's not on, well, I guess he's kind of on 3 bases now. But he just killed about 12 bobs. He killed about a third of the economy. And I'd like to remind you that, well, you know, technically Infernals have this ability to go and supercharge their production at the cost of a lot of Animus. You don't have that as Vanguard. You don't have mules that you can drop, anything like that. So the venom traps are gonna try to do what they can to knock down some of the hedgehogs. No, that's a really good one. So this is actually a lot of damage being done to the hedgehogs. They get revealed, they're infested, they take damage. They're gonna survive for the time being as this attack through the middle. I mean, this repair turret is doing a lot. Gaunts are gonna try to target this down. The miasma making it so hard to attack in, and with the Hellborn as well, this hodgepodge of units, a couple spellcasters, a siege unit, bunch of other stuff. They do a really nice job working together to force back our Vanguard player. And that means that this Therium that he's been mining, we talked about how important it is to get Therium mining up on this map because, again, of just how that all works with the middle of the map and not a lot of patches elsewhere. Because he clears them out on the map, all of a sudden, you don't have the Therium refinery. You lose a couple more bobs, and Mixu's setup is not as lockdown tight happy as it once was. It is worth pointing out here as we take a look at this army. That's 5 Hex and 2 Hellborn. Couple Gaunts. The Therium income that Snoxtar has right now is not in any way, shape, or form close to the Luminite income that he has. So you got to figure out ways to spend that. Some of that obviously is going to go into static defense. This is going to be going into replacing Bobs, of course. But this does mean that we're probably going to see a higher than normal amount of brutes in an army because, again, you're mining a ton of Luminite, not a lot of Therium. We're going to see Nightfall infestation goes down. We're going to see the miasmas dropping here as well. Things have to cut away for the time being. Acid traps getting laid down here. The Vulcans starting to get low. They're getting targeted down, but there's not a lot to defend these Hellborn. Okay, seems like we're fine. It's like they don't really want to commit into it. So Snoxtar has the map now, and we're seeing him start to go and take more and more bases. He's got the bottom right base at this point, which means Therium. That's the important thing here. He now has access to another setup of Therium, and he scouts this extra base on the way. So Mixu's economy, we saw the damage it took earlier, is not the best position. He's aware of this 4th base that Mixu's trying to take. And by the way, he's got 4 Hellborn on the other side of the map, a couple other units as well. And 4 Hellborn don't one-shot a Vulcan. I believe it's 7 is the magic number for that, but that's a big miasma that's going to go down. Hedgehogs are going to try to get on top of the Hellborn as well as they can, knocking down these Hexens, targeting them down before the miasma goes and kills off everything. But there's another one going down right now, and the Hellborn just sitting here in the middle of things. Fiend spawning just enough to be a bit of a buffer and be annoying, and making it pretty hard for Mixu to go in and dive on top of this army. So Mixu seems like he's going to have to give this base up. This pressure, this channeled miasma, these 5 Hellborn now. Feels like that's just going to be a little bit too much, but I mean, that's a lot of hedgehogs here. That's a med tech. That's a Vulcan, but yeah, the base is just dead. Okay. And this pressure from Snoxtar is deadly. He's got a couple venom traps down as well, just to make sure that, well, something happens and he has to retreat. The venom traps are going to do a ton of damage to the army. We're going to see, again, these Vulcans getting targeted down. And while they're powerful, they absolutely are. They're also very expensive. So losing 2 of them like that, I think 3 total in this game, is not the easiest thing to support. Now, when we talk about this setup and how things are going, we do have to point out that this is diagonal spawns. This is a map setup where Snoxtar is not really going to be able to pressure as well as he would like. He's not going to be able to run across the map and really continue this tempo. Mainly just because the bases are so far away. So he's killed off the 4th base, killed off a lot of workers in the main base a couple minutes ago. but hasn't really been able to do much more than that at the moment. Now, we have to see what more he's going to be able to do, but with this vision camp here, actually, briefly, Snoxtar lost the vision, but anyways, he gets a lot of damage done on the hedgehogs and forces them back for the time being. And again, he's taking bases on the bottom right side. He's really developing his economy in a way that it can be kind of hard to do on this map sometimes, because you got to go down, up, down, go around and get into that. And that is, well, that's pretty good. His economy, he's now on 4 Therium patches. His economy is going real nice. Now with this high ground that he's got as well, there's these miasmas causing so many issues. But even as we talk about miasma causing issues, there's the elephant in the room, and that's this evac with a couple atlases inside, and they don't even have their upgrade yet. They're going to be even more painful. Without weavers, you don't really have good answers to it, and well, weavers aren't the most mobile unit, so looks like Snoxtar's going to try to break things down before that happens. And Hellborn, they can share a range, they can get close enough to an atlas that you're kind of okay, because of course they don't have to siege up. As I have no idea what that golden aura thing was around the Hellborn, unless it was something coming out of the Sentinel and I just haven't seen the animation before. I don't know, but there was something there that went down very quickly. I'm not totally sure what it was. Anyways, more atlases showing up. The Hellborn do need to target this down. Hellborn die very quickly to a bunch of atlases, and with the mass upgrades, well, it's a problem, but even still, the damage is being done here. The Hellborn, the brutes, the fiends getting on top of this setup, and this is damage being done, but Snoxtar has to be very careful, because the problem with this army, and the problem with any Infernals army, and especially one of higher tech, is it can be pretty hard to tell when you're losing the fight versus when you're winning it. And if you lose the fight, everything goes down. You lose all those expensive Hellborn that cost 250 Therium a pop. You lose all the Hexen, everything else. Oh no, Snoxtar. I actually have no idea what that stasis thing is. I guess it's something from the Sentinel, and I've just actually never seen the animation. But anyway, Snoxtar got hit with a bug where sometimes you go and you buy the dragon and it goes on cooldown, but it never actually does anything. You never actually get the dragon, and it can be game losing, to be fair. Snoxtar is benefiting from having this incredible economy and pretty nice supply lead on his opponent. But this game is far from over, especially if you had to waste 500 on something that you don't actually get. Yeah, that's not great. For context, that's enough gas for 2 Hellborn. It's a big deal. It's enough Illuminite for a whole lot more things than that. So we're going to see the double evac drop on the high ground, and this is where life gets kind of dicey for Snoxtar. He's got a couple Hellborn, sure, but you can put some Atlases off, and they're just going to evaporate all these Hellborn, even without the upgrade. But Shadow Flyers are now on the menu, and that means that some damage is being done to these evacs, trying to make sure that something goes down. But the evacs stay alive through it all. And while damage is being done to the Bob line, Overcharge keeps him safe enough. Let's see how well this one works out. More Vulcans, more Atlases. This army is becoming very hard to deal with, and with the absence of Weaver is becoming very hard to deal with. So Mixu, we talk about this setup that he's trying to figure out. He is veritably trapped in his quadrant of the map. He's got these 4 bases. There are ways to attack in, but he's also built an army that's really hard for Snoxtar to contest. It's kind of the story of this, even as damage has been done, and I don't know, 20 Bobs or so have died over the course of this game, which doesn't sound like a lot in the context of a StarCraft game. It just sounds like, it's fairly normal. with how slow the economy ramps here and how long it takes to produce a lot of units. Yeah, no, 20 workers is a lot. 20 workers is a very significant amount. By the way, I should point out that this is the first playtest where we have animations for the Shadow Flyers. They have that flappy around there. They kind of do things. They're not just a red box, or I guess technically it'd be a gray box. So we can see them flap around. They've also been changed pretty significantly. Instead of doing a bunch of damage on burst and then what was it, applying infest? Yeah, they applied infest, I think. If you got an upgrade in this one, they don't do as much damage, but they do effectively do minus armor. They effectively amp damage. So we're gonna see Shrestha made manifest here on the north side. And actually, really nice play there from Snoxtar. Make sure that things aren't really gonna happen. We're gonna see, well, the Shadow Flyers are gonna try to retreat back home, and oh, there we go. That's one dead. But luckily there were three evacs and only 4 atlases. So you're kind of fine there, as the atlases are, well, trying to find as much value as they can. Hedgehogs here as well. Sentinels just diminishing the damage of everything inside. Double Doomringer all set up, but they're forced to land immediately because of the Hedgehogs. Miasma's going to start to wear away at these Hedgehogs in the ground, but they're going to get picked up, maybe put somewhere else, and this slow push is just not getting what you need. And oh no, Doombringer gets picked up and goes down immediately. I'm not even sure what was inside of it, but something went down. Meanwhile, this attack coming in from Mixu, or from Snoxtar on the bottom right. Well, it's trying to take advantage of this idea, maybe, that Mixu was preoccupied in the center, but instead overcharge, repair turret, everything else means that it's very hard to attack into this area. And Snoxtar, you know, part of it was losing 500, which is never going to be good. But part of it also is, well, it becomes really hard to defeat Vanguard at every stage in the game. So there is that. My tea is cold enough to drink. This is excellent. But now also we talked about the Flayed Dragon being out once and being expensive and never showing up. Now we do have a Flayed Dragon. Now that is something that Snoxtar has available. It's the highest single target damage in the game. It does, I think, 50 damage? 55 damage, something like that. I actually forget what it is, but it does a lot of damage. Also, of course, applies Infest with its attacks. Has a spell that implies Infest in an area. Can suck Infest off units to do the damage instantaneously and give itself a big white health shield. And has an aura that says that anytime one fiend would get spawned by Infest, instead you get one, you get 2. You get +1 fiend spawns on whatever kind of, whatever you do from Infest. So it can be very powerful, but will also absolutely melt to a bunch of Hedgehogs. So you got to be very careful about that one. We're gonna see one of the Atlases go down. No saving it at the time being. No evacs here, but the rest of the army's now going to show up. And Mixu, he is very close to putting himself in the kind of position that he wants to be in this game. It's only the dragon left, and look at the damage on that thing. All the Hedgehogs, they go into that anti-air mode, and they knock the dragon down from full white health, so 150% HP effectively, down to like 10%. It got annihilated, and that's one of the reasons why, well, the Flayed Dragon can be a bit iffy in this matchup. And I wonder what this Hornet's for, because it's not like we're seeing a ton of airplay. We saw Spriggans at one point, and yes, technically there is a Shadow Spire available on the map, but you know, again, it's not like Infernals have I don't know, an equivalent to a Broodlord or something, where they really have this powerful looming air threat. There's just, I mean, I guess it's for the dragon. In my head, I had the dragon as having taken enough damage that it's probably not super not super useful for a while, but the ability to go dive into a worker line and just turn them all into fiends and take down a base is really useful. So friendly fire from all these Atlases is causing problems. The fire zones are, well, I think they killed off a couple Vulcans, which is not what you're looking for. It's Snoxtar again. He's got a bit of a run by on the right side on the 4th base, and well, luckily for Mixu, he's got a 5th base, so there is that. And well, Hedgehogs can be deputized to go defend against this. So in general, I mean, these players are playing this game really, really well. By the way, what I do really appreciate as we take a look at the setup is the fact that, well, I don't know. I think it's just randomly circulated, but we got the Celestial soundtrack playing in the background for the last couple games. This game and the previous, which is awesome because the Celestial soundtrack is just about the best thing. So I'm not really complaining. So one of the problems when we talked about, it's like, okay, you get 4 bases, and then it's really hard to take a 5th on this map. And one of the problems with that is we're gonna see. I love that. That's so sick. He dropped a Shroud Stone on the open gap that the Bobs were sent through in the first place, because, well, that means they can't get out. Super cool. But one of the issues with this setup is we're gonna just see. Well, Atlases can kind of solve that problem. One of the issues with the setup is you kind of gotta go down, up, down. You gotta go around a corner. It can be very hard to take that base. That is. Like on a separate platform from where your core 4 are. Certainly annoying. We saw it happen right there, but luckily Snoxtar was able, or Mixu was able to respond in time, but he does lose a base on the right side. So it's like you establish north, you establish 12 o'clock, but you lose 3. And we are certainly at a point in the game where there is no Luminite to mine in the main base. There may not even be Luminite to mine at the natural. I'm pretty sure that I think I can still see stuff mining at the 3rd, but really the economy is not all that great. And I was gonna say, it's like, okay, well, where is the supply from Snoxtar, because he's building a really, really significant one, and the answer is in the main base of Mixu at this point. There just really is not a lot. Okay, Hedgehog is running through. That's a little bit weird. As at this point, Mixu, his economy is so starved that he's actively selling structures just to make sure he can try to optimize. He can try to go and get as much stuff out as possible to defend against this. But this, even with the tech advantage, this feels really hard. So yeah, we're gonna see these fiends go down on the altar of hedgehogs, and that is gonna be rather annoying. But the main base is dead. The 3rd base is dead. Mixu has 1.5, 2.5 mining bases. By the way, shout out to Snoxtar for keeping this dragon alive for just about forever. It's one of those things where it's like it's almost worth it to just go and say this is fine. It's dead. Like I'm gonna get a better one, but that's not really what we see here. And now you gotta be careful when Mixu as you get set up like this. He has so many evacs, and one went down, but I don't think it was one that had too much of anything inside of it. Maybe it did. I don't know. But Snoxtar, he's up 140 supply. And that's all in army supply. Let's be clear. It might be a couple in workers, but it's majority in army supply. This is not some TVZ where the Zerg players up 15 workers and the Terrans up 30 army supply, and that kind of equals out because 30 army supply is 15 medevacs, and that's fine. And now as the siege continues, I think it's going to be a difficult game for Mixu to, or for Mixu to defend, even losing the 500-500 that happened. And we move to game 3. We move into game 3. Isle of Dread is a very cool map. Very interesting map. A map that they turned into a 2v2 map without a lot of troubles, which well, they just added a base in the main, and you know, it's kind of interesting. This map is massive, by the way. It's got like 4 different attack paths. It's kind of got a weird expansion setup too, because you can go and take 4, what makes it would be the right side base, kind of off maybe at a 10-degree angle off the horizontal, and that gives you Illuminate and Therium, and a reasonably orthogonal base, because you want to go and you want to have it, you want to have your base perpendicular to one of the four edges of the Illuminate patch. I know it's still programmer art to the best of my knowledge, but even still, like whatever you want to call that, there are kind of 4 patches available. And you want to go put as perpendicular as possible, because that allows you to go and optimize your mining. And the problem with the double base that we have set up here is, well, it doesn't really work, because just of how the perpendicular base is, you can't really mine from it. It's still probably better than just mining one, but it's a little bit harder to mine efficiently from. So now that we're sitting here, this is Snoxtar playing pretty differently, because it's one of those things. Actually, this is something that has been kind of been rather hotly contested. I think is a fair way to say it, because on the one hand, you might say, well, you really want to go play defensively. That's kind of how you got to play as Infernals for the time being. But you can also go do is Proxy and Ironfold, spend your Animus, spend your 15 Animus to go and get the full the Hellspawn Resurgence and get a bunch all at once. Get like 3 brutes all at once on top of the one that you already were able to build, and then just flood with brute, and you already have the Hexen. You can get a lot of damage done theoretically. Now, Overcharge makes it a little bit more difficult. Scouts running home makes it a little bit more difficult, and I don't really know that I like Snoxtar's idea and how he's going to play this. So for now, the brutes are just getting a lot done. Not killing everything necessarily, but they are certainly finding themselves effective, keeping things back home. They even got a Lancer, which are not that expensive. They're 100 Luminite, not 150. Yeah, I feel like with as expensive as the brute is, it should morph into 3 fiends, not 2. You know, it's 150, 50 Luminite for each fiend. Makes sense. As we can see, this slow rally of just a bunch of brutes, the single barracks proxy makes life just difficult for Mixu for the time being. It's a lot of bobs going down. There is an exo up, so there is that. But just in general, it's just very, very hard for Mixu to get properly ever set up in this game, because he's just taking so much damage from like what would generally be a quick rally. A little slow, but it's fine. There's just this heavy committed pressure coming out of Snoxtar, and yes, there are scouts on the other side, and that is causing issues. But these brutes are just untouched, and it's kind of funny as we take a look at things. By the way, I know I said scouts on the other side. I lied. I looked at it. I'm like, clearly the scouts on the other side, because I forgot to look at the minimap. Scouts are doing what they can to go defend these brutes on this side of the map, and if you look at it, it's like it's only 2 workers mining at a 12. The brutes are definitely paying for themselves here. So, with that being said, what is Mixu's approach out of this setup? I think the answer might just be moving on to next game. He has so little mining. Snoxtar's taking the double gold Luminite as well, or the Luminite base as well, so he's got a really good economy. And these fiends might just beat the Lancer, and then if the Lancer's dead, well, there's nothing to defend this. Now, granted, overcharged bobs with a bunch of veterancy are fairly tanky. They can get something done. What exactly that is, I don't know, but they do hold on for the time being. I mean, for the time being, I say, because Brute Fiend, they're going to continue just rallying, and it looks like a Hellspawn Resurgence spent again, so Snoxtar just getting a lot of brutes in here. And again, it's just being annoying. Every bob that goes down is mining time denied. Every bob that goes down is pain and misery for Mixu at this point. And yeah, we got a bunch more. So now there are 5 brutes, so just random gone. They're going to wedge themselves into a corner maybe. And yes, there's going to be a single hedgehog out in a couple minutes. In fact, this barracks is going to get canceled, or is going to get sold just to try to get things out a little bit faster. Problem is, you're not mining. Who cares? In fact, we're going to see a lot of brutes working away at this factory, or this mech base. So it really is only going to be... Yeah, there we go. Mixu has been dead for a while, but that is the official end. So now that we've seen this early aggression workout for Snoxtar, the single proxy barracks, or the single proxy iron vault, there we go on the map. Gotta get myself out of these StarCraft terms, come hell or high water, one way, shape, or form, we're gonna make it happen. Now that we've seen this happen, the question now is, what is Mixu's response if Snoxtar decides to go for it again? Because, well, that looked pretty powerful. That being said, just to be clear, this is not Isle of Dread. This is the Boneyard. We're in the Bone Zone, and there are not nearly as many pushing paths. There are not nearly as many proxy areas, and that does make it a little bit harder for Snoxtar to get away with something. The rush distance is a little bit faster, so you can go and if the scout shows up and there's nothing in the main base and there's no expansion on the way, Mixu should be able to identify what's happening. So there is going to be that as the Hexen shows up, and it takes 5 skulls, I think it is, to go kill a single Bob, something, assuming it doesn't get repaired. So this Hexen is not going to do much, but it's just going to show up, see what's happening, teleport right back on home. Interesting thing, we don't really see Snoxtar, not in this game, trying to go solo one of the camps, because, well, there are some Therium camps. Upper left, bottom right, there's Luminite camps in the middle. And you can absolutely, if you manage your skulls right, you send one skull off, send a second skull off. Make sure you have 100% white health on the Hexen before you do it. Otherwise, it's a little bit rough. But you can absolutely go and solo some of these outcroppings pretty early on, which is a big deal. Because while, you know, eventually Mixu's going to have the map control with all the units that he makes, and yeah, that's a problem, you can at least get a little bit of value out. Because even if, okay, so you lose the resource camp. Every spider's worth, as we can see right here, every spider's worth 5 Therium. There are 4 or 5 spiders. That's 25 Therium right there. And that may not seem like a lot, but multiplied by 2 maybe, or just, we'll just get that. And that's getting you into the mid game. That's getting you closer to a greater shrine. That's 5 gaunts if you want to go for that. And plus whatever you make off of the outcropping itself. But Snoxtar, we talked about the proxies. Seems like he's got one in mind in this game, number 4 here. So for now, the scouts are going to show up on the other side. This Hexen is indefensible, cannot be kept alive, but instead the 3 level 3 scouts are going to just dive right on top of the imps. The 4th level 3 scout's going to show up here, and I don't know exactly what Snoxtar intends to do, but he's got to handle this significant issue that's shown up on his side of the map right now. And remember, because this is Boneyard, there are 2 entrances, 2 access points to the main base. Which means that you can't even wall off against the scouts. That was an answer once upon a time. You go and you wall off against the scouts, and great. They're a lot of damage, but if they're there and they're walled off, they can't really do a lot. So that doesn't really matter, though, of course, because the scouts can dive in through 2 angles, and that makes it just very, very hard to defend. For now, though, looks like Mixu's not gonna try to dive in and make something more happen. As again, this imp has to mean something, and especially as we look at Snoxtar here, or we look at how the economy scales. Remember, oh, what good timing! That Volt is going to get scouted out immediately, and Snoxtar didn't see it. Remember, building structures have less vision than build structures, and certainly less vision than units for the most part. So Snoxtar has no idea that he's been scouted, which means he can't cancel this, and that means that Mixu is going to roughly allow it to complete, and then go from there. But the other problem with this setup is because Mixu or Snoxtar sent that imp out earlier on, you get less workers in a game of Stormgate than, say, a game of StarCraft or something. And in fact, Infernals start with less workers than any of the other factions, which means that a single worker dedicated onto the other side of the map for that long to build a proxy is a ton of lost mining. It's actually extremely significant here. So Snoxtar, we can see this actually in the supply. Granted, I don't really have a good understanding of relative supply scaling. I can tell you, say, in StarCraft, do we expect TVZ in the early game, the army supply of the Terran player to massively outstrip the Zerg, and then it kind of bounces back and forth? Or we talk about TVP and we look at Terran players and their supply from like 5 to 7 minutes should be pretty up there compared to the Protoss. But anyway, we're going to see, looks like that was Hellborn Resurgence, so it's going to be about 4 brutes ready to dive into the natural. And well, even though this is known by Mixu, he doesn't know exactly what's coming, not just yet, but he's pulling himself back into position. He took Therium bottom right, upper left, so he's getting that much more money, leveling up the hedgehogs as he has the opportunity, taking down the health camp, and, well, Snoxtar set himself up for this attack that he doesn't know has already been countered. That doesn't feel good. I mean, the hedgehogs are already... Hedgehogs are going to show up. They're going to say, oh, hey, there's an iron vault there. That, where's your army, though? And maybe this is a little bit maybe this is a little bit problematic because, well, the Hedgehogs are out on the map. They can get maybe pounced upon, but it seems like they're going to get back there in time. And now you just infinitely kite away against all these brutes. So you're going to spawn fiends eventually, but you kite against those two and you're fine. And remember, these are level 3. There's a healing zone they can kite back to, so it's even more problematic here. Now, this is not going to work for Snoxtar. I appreciate the attempt. It worked in game 3, so why wouldn't it work in game 4? Well, because it was scouted, Snoxtar. Because it was, unfortunately for you, it was scouted. He knew everything that was happening, and that is going to be that. Yeah, sure, there's a lot of brutes showing up. Yeah, that's annoying, and there are a bunch of fiends on the backside. Sure, fine. They die so quickly. They die so very quickly. And yes, this Lancer's dead, but I mean, just look at this. 63 supply to 40. This setup that we have, well, he's going to target down the Hexen as well, so no more free infest, no more vision, nothing like that. Now, you got to be careful. These Hedgehogs, as powerful as they are, they can get surrounded by all these fiends, and that actually is going to work out pretty well. All of a sudden here, a lot of the Hedgehogs are going to go down, but unfortunately for Snoxtar, there are more where that came from, and a bunch of fiends, they have to surround to be useful. They're kind of like Zerglings in that way. Trying to gum up the choke like this is just a recipe for death destruction and a losing game. So Snoxtar is dead. Mixu, he's the one that's going to get to move on to game number 5. Now we move into game number 5, a map that everyone, at least those of you that played in any of the betas, should be very familiar with. This is Secluded Grove. This is a map that we played, certainly I've played hundreds of games on because it was the only map on ladder for a time. It's a map that has really is all about the center base that has 2 Luminite setups, 2 Therium setups. Very, if you can hold on to it, it's incredibly economically efficient. You only need one command post, only 1 shrine to go and mine everything. That's extremely efficient. And it's also pretty easy to defend. You gotta go take down a bunch of rocks to get through it, and especially if Atlases are out, or Vulcans, or siege units, well, it does really pose a challenge to go and break down. So for now, Mixu, I think he was gonna go try to go worker rush the health camp. That was a meta once upon a time. You go and you kind of put a worker down to make sure things can happen. Well, we're going to see the Hexen go and get teleported right back home. And because it was only a single worker, this is most likely not going to go and be an early expo. This is instead going to be for a turret, going to be for a buzzsaw cannon to go take down maybe the health camp. I don't know. We're going to have to find out. And yeah, that does seem to be the case. So worker's going to go there. Is going to build a turret. Going to rush this health camp down. And oh, never mind. How could I forget? Oh, pathing, please. Oh, no, Mixu. Oh, no. If you click the wrong trees, the worker can decide that it wants to go all the way around, and this is just so much wasted time. It's a problem. I don't know if we want to call it a bug. God, that feels bad. Mixu is going for all this stuff, and first of all, the first Bob was slowed down because a Hexen showed up, and most early game units fight a Hexen off pretty well, but nothing by itself. Not a Bob by itself. And then you go and you're like, I'm gonna drill through these trees, and then you hit the wrong tree and it doesn't work out for you whatsoever, and you waste all this time, and the run by potential's maybe not there, because I wouldn't be surprised to see him chop down the second wall, but he's actually not going to. So there is that at the very least. Again, just minor awkwardness coming out of Mixu, and well, with the Iron Vault on the ramp and the Brood already out and the Hexen here and the meat farm, this guy run by is thinking about diving in the main base, and there we go, the mass promotion trying to dive on top of this Hexen immediately. If he dives it, there's no saving it, but he's not going to dive on top of it right now. Instead, hey, there's an imp. That seems pretty nice. And, well, we're just going to have to get out. Without a full wall, and again, these maps are just super hard to wall, there's not a lot that you can do. Okay, so Attico is observing this. You can see kind of the upper left corner. This is his tournament. This is, again, the Alpha Navigators Cup, number 13, the Europe, Middle East, and Africa finals. And what timing there for him to go pan over to the speed camp right as the goats turn over and roll onto their back. The idle animation's a thing. We do have to of course point out, because I've seen some people in the YouTube comments talking about this. The animals in the creep camps are absolutely placeholders. We saw during the, what was it, the Game Awards? Something late last year, early this year, where, oh no, it's the Chris Metzen announcement, or not the Chris Metzen, the Samwise announcement, where he Samwise Didier, where he goes into the art design for these units, and he actually shows us some art design for one of the neutral creep factions. I guess they're kind of going with, I guess there are different neutral creep factions. I'm not totally sure. Anyways, we saw the art for that. It's obviously not deer, it's not goats, it's human cyborgs and other things, like much more kind of gritty post-apocalyptic type of setup. But realistically, when the creeps are already probably on there, that I've played on like their third iteration of how it's working, it doesn't make sense to spend development budget on modeling those out if things may change. If you you know, it just doesn't make sense to spend dev money on that. Much like the towers, I think, are also fairly placeholdery. You can kind of, they're not quite as placeholdery. I mean, I tried to click on the mini map because I'm like, I can go show you what I'm talking about, but I can't, because this is a video and not actually a thing. But anyway, they're still somewhat placeholdery because, again, the fact that there are towers here might change. What the camps are like might change. It's very still in active development. I think probably a little bit more stabilized. So we may see some partially modeled creep camps during early access. I don't know. Actually, I don't know if they... So during the playtest, we've actually seen partially modeled stuff. We've seen a lot of gray box, a lot of red boxed or blue boxed units that are there. But I don't know if you do that for early accesses. Anyways, as we take a look at what's happening right here, this is the push that won game number 1. It's Vulcans, it's Bobs, and immediately just, yep, Throats cannot contest this anymore. They got the chickens. But look at this Snoxtar, a big adaptation from game number 2. I don't know what he saw. Again, we were talking about other things. But he realizes that, okay, if you're going to go for this, and again, I don't know exactly what he saw, but Vulcans against this setup, well, you got, there we go, you stun it, you do 20% HP, attack damage does this as well with the Shroud Stun made manifest. I mean, this is a perfect setup for Snoxtar in this game number 5. Now, you don't want to overchase because, well, that is a little bit, that still can be pretty dangerous, but if you knock down this high veterancy Vulcan, but the repair is there and you have gone far, far too off creep. And there we go, just teleport right back home. You should point out that a lot of the high-tech units that Vanguard or that Infernals have, they have that teleportation ability. And, well, the problem is you don't have vision right now. So this Vulcan is eminently abductable, but you need the vision for it. So I think we're going to see chain abducts on one of the Vulcans. There we go. Damage being done, abducted just one more time. If we have a cooldown, do we have a cooldown? We don't have a cooldown available. Yeah, so that's not going to happen. I'm just going to talk about chain abducts. And he cannot quite nuke it down. And man, Vulcans absolutely shred Gaunts. So you got to be very careful if you're Snoxtar here. Every unit matters in this all-in we're seeing out of Mixu. There's no, well, I was going to say there's no third base. There's a third base now. So Snoxtar, he needs to win this fight. We're going to see a big abduct, maybe running forward. At least some of the Bobs are going down. So there's not going to be that repair. And now we got the Gaunt speed upgrade. So they can try to chase a little bit more, split a little bit more. This army is so freaking tanky. And with how, oh man, it's so hard to take these fights because you're going to see, I mean, look at this. First of all, the Gaunts explode. And second of all, well, Weavers are just so slow that chasing is an impossibility with this setup. You need the Weavers to go, as we saw one Weaver teleport right back home. The second Weaver is just dead. It's already used to teleport. It's on cooldown probably. Maybe just didn't have the energy for it. Not totally sure. But off Shroud, Weavers are so slow that chasing is almost an impossibility. Weavers are a setup where you go and you set yourself up. You set your siege or you set your defensive position, and that's what you do. So with that being said, it does become a little bit dicey as, well, we are going to see for now the Shroud Stone going to get targeted down because, hey, there's just a bunch of Hedgehogs, and they kill Shroud Stones very quickly. Second Shroud Stone made manifest. Double abduct there, double lash from the Weavers, and that's going to kill off one of these high veterancy Hedgehogs. But even still, look at this setup. The Vanguard has the middle base. Mixu, he's up decently in supply, and Yeah, I mean, technically we're here as the Shroudstone is now, there we go, it's a Wraithstone. So Wraithstones don't do direct attack anymore. But instead they leech 2% of any enemy unit within their Aegis. They leech 2% HP and they slow. And we can see that's happening right now. The unit's getting a lot slower damage over time is the thing, but it's still as powerful as these structures are, as well, as expensive as they are, they still die very quickly to a bunch of hedgehogs. So for now, we're going to see one of these of the Weavers going down. Second one, this is the one that was saved earlier, is going to go down here for the time being. It's actually doing a really nice job of staying alive on the Shroud. Just the passive healing is there. We're going to see Venom Traps going down, but now, well, everything's dead. And the Weaver idea, I like it, but it's not going to be enough here. And we talked about it. People were saying Celestials were Imba. Well, Mixu makes Vanguard look real strong as well, as he wins TANC MEA, Europe, the Middle East, and Africa, number 13, 3-2 over Snoxtar.